Well, listening to Cassandra read the nativity story leads me to wonder whether Mary was the kind of mother who kept a baby book. Now, mind you, I'm not being flip here. The question of a baby book for Jesus is not all that ludicrous. In fact, Luke, in this lovely little touch to the story, suggests that Mary may well have kept one in her heart. And Mary treasured all of these words and pondered them in her heart. And I suppose that's the only way she would have kept one, because, in fact, there is no Hallmark card shop on Manger Square in Bethlehem. I should know, I've been there. I looked. Actually, it might be interesting to know what Jesus' baby book might have contained had Mary written one. You know all the traditional questions. Describe baby's first Christmas. Date, time, and place of birth. Name of attending physician. Baby's first visitors. Baby's first gifts. Whatever may or may not have happened, and whatever it must have felt like when it happened, Mary tucked it all away and held on to it. But she did more than that. She tried to make sense of it. For the scripture tells us that she did two things in her heart. She preserved it, and she pondered it. Now, to my way of thinking, to ponder is to reflect casually upon something, the emphasis being on the word casual. Pondering to me does not mean puzzling or groping or exploring or probing, but it means all of that and more in the Greek. In the original language, it would appear that Mary tossed things to and fro in her heart as one trying to hit upon the correct meaning. Pondered. Well, she is not alone. We who find it easier to keep Christmas than to understand it are right there with her. What do we have here, really? Do we have history? Do we have story? How many facts are there? And through what filters are we looking at them? And what do they mean? And if that weren't tricky enough, we're forced to contend with this 2,000 years of Christian theology overlaid to suggest that this baby boy was not just any baby boy, but may just be God's baby boy and may just be God. Which, you've got to admit, is not the easiest thing in the world to comprehend. Certainly Mary didn't get it then or ever. And Joseph, well, the news pretty well bowled him over, it did. The first Christmas pageant that I directed as a minister with children in Nashville, Tennessee, the child that played Mary looked lovely in her blue and white. She entered very properly onto the stage, sat very serenely in this chair just for her. Joseph was backing her. Jesus was fronting her. She was surrounded by angels. Joseph's hands rested comfortably on the back of the chair until the chair began to shake. First gently, and then violently, followed by a small Josephian thud and a large angelic scattering as Joseph just dropped dead. Well, not quite dead away, because the stagehands came, drug him off the stage. The audience was none the wiser. The story went on, but the mystery of it certainly got to Joseph. Everybody loves a mystery. More to the point, everybody loves solving a mystery. "How did you do that?" says the child to the magician, thinking that if the magician would just slow down a little bit, or the child could move closer to the action, the child could demystify the magic and find out the secret. Most mysteries are solvable by information and observation. If we could just see more or read more, we would get it. If you play the game Clue long enough and pay attention carefully enough, it will become obvious that it simply had to be Colonel Mustard in the library with the lead pipe. And for the mysteries that ordinary investigation can't solve, maturity comes to the rescue. Things that you don't get now, you will get later. How many times were you told as a child that you were too young to understand something? When I was a little girl, someone told me about the pleasures of kissing. "Yuck," I said, because the word gross had not been invented yet. Yuck, why would anybody want to kiss anybody? I really didn't know. And no one could have told me in any way that would have made sense to me. More information would not have helped. A lecture by the older girls would not have helped. A book supplied by my mother would not have helped. I had to kind of grow into the answer, which I did. Leading to, quote, "much gladness of heart," to quote the prophet Isaiah. But there are some mysteries that are simply not solvable with more information or more observation or more time. In fact, the more we see and the more that we know and the longer seeing and knowing go on, the deeper the mystery grows. Science is like that. One answer leads to 20 more questions, and then 20 answers leads to 200 more questions. And the same is true for human beings. If I know you only in passing, it's easy for me to go home and tell my husband that I know all there is to know about you. I can characterize and categorize and capsulize you all after about 10 minutes. But if I spend 10 hours or 10 days or 10 years with you, I may have to go home and confess to Bob that I never really knew you at all. Because every time the world turns, the light hits the prism of your being and is refracted in wonderfully diverse and surprising new ways, which I do not really have to tell Bob, because it is from Bob that I learned this first. That's because love is the ultimate mystery, followed closely by the personality of the beloved. Ah, dear husband, so much to learn, so much to love. God's love is like that, as it is in today's story of God's love. Well, you know it. Cassandra read it. There's not a piece of it that is new or strange or changed. In fact, the details, where the details of the story are concerned, there simply aren't many. There's not enough speeches to fill a one-act play, even a 5-minute one-act play. And so we take a few liberties and add a few embellishments. We stick animals in there that weren't there. We put characters at the manger that weren't there. Come on Christmas Eve, you'll discover this. We write lines, sometimes whole speeches, for the characters that weren't there. Because without them, the story seems too Spartan, too simple, too severe. Yet, we keep coming back to places like this, to hear it and to sing it over and over again, because deep inside of us, we can't abide any thought that it might not be true, or that God's gift might have every other name in the world on it but ours. As Peter Gomes once said, what interests the people is the mystery of the manger. What interests the philosophers is the legacy of the mystery. What do we actually have here? Why does it last and grow? Why can't we let it go? Why can't it let us go? Even the skeptic finds it hard to resist the magnetism of a manger at Christmas. As George Santana once said, I'm dating myself, he said, I believe that there is no God and that the Virgin Mary is his mother. So what is the message? Is it that love comes down, that God breaks in, that light trumps dark, that holy things and common things can meet somewhere out back and coexist? It's all that and more. It's that the world is an acceptable place for deity to do business, and that human beings are acceptable creatures for deity to do business with. And if God can live here, so can we. I'll bet differently than we have done so far. Because we've got a baby to take care of now, whose name is love. And it would be a shame to drop it or to walk away from it now that we have seen what it looks like and have felt what it feels like. The Hebrew prophet says, a little child will lead you into peace. Which is why Christmas, which begins with a visitation, God's, is all about a transformation, ours. Have you ever noticed that every story, most secular stories about Christmas, are conversion stories? Either someone is changed or someone's outlook is changed. We love to watch Dickens' Christmas Carol because we find out in the end that Ebenezer Scrooge discovers that he need not be as cold and as cruel as he was. Change of heart. And in a world that resigns itself often to the mantra of saying, the way things are is the way things are always going to be, we'll light a candle in any place and on any night to any suggestion that the world and we could be different. I've been listening to the news out of Jerusalem and Bethlehem. Friday, a skiff of snow dusted the yellow stones of Jerusalem's old walled city on Friday. At the intersection of the Via Dolorosa and the Al-Wad, a noisy, jostling crossroad of faith. At sundown, while the bells at the Christian Church of the Holy Sepulchre rang for Christmas services, the minaret called Muslims to evening prayer, as schools of Jewish children danced, singing across the plaza toward the western wall to greet the Sabbath. The implication being that all is proceeding peaceably. To which I said, praise God. Even a small dose of peace is a welcome tranquilizer for the soul of the world. And if history has anything to tell us, a small dose it will be. The year 2015 brought us headlines from the hundreds of thousands of those displaced by the Syrian civil war, and bombings and shootings in Beirut, Mali, Burundi, and Paris, and in Chicago, Colorado Springs, and San Bernardino. Oh, the world is strangely with us this Christmas. But when has it been any different? Christmas cannot be isolated from life because Jesus cannot be separated from history. The smell of the world, both sweet and foul, was with him then. The smell of the world, both sweet and foul, is with him now. And to whatever degree he is where we are, the smell of the world is with us as well. Christmas is about so much more than a baby born in Bethlehem. It's about a cosmic battle, a battle of cosmic significance. It may focus on the city of David called Bethlehem, but it is linked to actions in any city, in any community, in any home, or in any heart, for that matter, where the hopes and fears of all the years compete with each other for territory, and where men and women are forced to decide which way they will lean, whether they lean in the direction of their hopes or whether they lean in the direction of their fears. What was it that Ebenezer Scrooge said? Bah! Oh. Bah! Interestingly enough, the word humbug means nonsense, gibberish, a fraud placed on someone else. So to respond humbug to Merry Christmas is to admit, no, there is no real merriment. And even to the discerning observer, this is often truth. For there seems to be no peace on earth, no matter which direction we look. And yet, the gospel, good news for all people, that a child has been born to us, remains a cause for joy, for making merry, for decking the halls, for spiking the eggnog, because it is a declaration of humbug in the face of every evil scheme and in the face of every fraudulent claim that there is not enough love to go around. There is no hope for sharing. There is no joy to celebrate in a world gone dark with fear. Bah! Deck the halls anyway. Bah! Let the angels sing. Bah! Make procession to the manger because things are not as they will be. As they will be. Thanks be to God.